fmtraining.tv. My name is Margaret. I'll be your broadcast engineer for today. I am here with the wonderful Calvin Moseman. Hello, Calvin. How you doing?
Good afternoon, doing well.
Good. Glad to hear it. So today we have an interesting conversation in progress. Let me pull up the live training schedule. Today we are talking about calendars and FileMaker, which is always an interesting discussion. I won't slur my words. If you'd like to support the channel, we'd greatly appreciate it. People always do like our free training, but sometimes we're like, man, this is like a really good beginner set, but I don't actually find that all the information is as thorough as I'd like. We have a couple options. One of the options is our bundle here, which we have several 100+ hours of really high energy video content training. The videos are really small, short, concise, highly animated. They cover very specific topics about pretty much everything basic and then intermediate level in FileMaker. So if you find that's more your speed, feel free to buy this and support the channel. People who have bought it, thank you very much. Seriously, every bit counts. With that being said, I think I'll hand it over to Calvin. Calvin, what are we doing today?
So today we are looking at having a calendar in FileMaker. And specifically, we're going to look at FM starting point and see how the calendar works and then how that is implemented. And if you have any questions along the way, please chime in and we'll address those. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So here is FM starting point, and we have this calendar button here that opens up a new window and shows us this calendar. And we have some cool options on here. We have different views. We can look at a week view, a day view, and then a list view. And of course, there's nothing on this. So let's add some stuff. So we're going to add a task. This one's called new task. And I'm going to say, what kind of task do we have? We have a live stream. And we're going to set this for, it's in progress, but it's going to be 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. And we can give it a category. I'll give it blue. Now the categories here, it will define what the color is, but those don't have to be color name. I'll scroll to the bottom and say continue. And now I might have to hit refresh here. Actually, I need to make sure I'm on today. And don't you love it when the demo fails? What's going on here? Well, let's go ahead and look at what's going on here, and we'll figure this out.
Yes, we will.
So nothing was found here. So that's interesting. Can you send me a new copy of FM Starting Point? I wonder if I just messed something up on this, because it should just work. Okay. So I'm just going to close this. Here is a brand new copy. It was just downloaded. And here it is. Let's go ahead and open the calendar. And here it already created some sample events for us in April. So let's go ahead and take a look at these. So we have we're looking at April 2023, and we have some sample events in here. And walk the dog, lunch, appointment, drive, meeting, file TPS report. And if we look at each one of these, we can see we can change this task name, and we can maybe change the category. Oh, this one doesn't have a category. Let's give it the category of blue. Say continue. And so now it changed to blue. And we can actually move these around. So I can move it to 11 o'clock. And when you see this, although you're not interacting with like a FileMaker objects, it changes the record. When you open up this card window, you can see that record changed. So I'll move it to another date. We'll move it to the 5th, open it up, and we will see that here now it says April 5th. Move it down to the 19th, open it up, it updated the record to the 19th. So we have some really cool things going on here. Now, we can view these in different formats. So here a moment ago, we were looking in the month view. Now we're looking in the week view. You can also select the day view. And depending on and finally a list view that just lists and groups them by day. And so all these different view options are there, and which is really nice. there's filtering options. Now, these are based on the category. Now, in this case, we've given all of these categories colors. So if I say blue, it only shows the blue one. But it doesn't have to be a name like that. It doesn't have to be a color, is what I'm saying. So let's open up categories, and we'll change blue to, let's say, the Colorado room. And maybe the color should be red because Colorado means red. Say okay. So now we saved it, and let's just make sure that this is refreshed. And now walk the dog is red. So we have a lot of cool options here. So we looked at different views. We filtered by categories, and we can also filter by user. It doesn't look like anything's assigned to John Smith, so let's assign something. John Smith's a staff, and that opened a window on my other page. Let's select John Smith. He's now selected. I'll say continue, and when we filter by John Smith, we'll see walk the dog is assigned to John Smith. So a lot of cool features here. How does it work under the hood? Or do we have any questions at this point about just how we interact with this calendar? So one thing to point out is that when we go into layout mode here, which I'll just show my toolbar and select edit layout, we don't actually have any layout objects that define that calendar besides a web viewer. So how is that happening? That web viewer is actually not really a FileMaker feature per se. It is a JavaScript library from these people at Full Calendar. And so this is a JavaScript calendar. This is a open source free JavaScript library. You can go to fullcalendar.io and download it and implement it in another app or in FileMaker or on a website, and it will work. So what's happened here is we've taken the library here and kind of tied it in with FileMaker so that we can use this awesome interface in FileMaker, because FileMaker doesn't have like a calendar layout object. So that is what we're doing here. And when we see that, we are actually going to layout mode. We're using a web viewer. So a web viewer is like a little, it's a web browser inside FileMaker, but instead of pointing it to the web, we are just feeding it this JavaScript library from fields in the app. So if we go to settings, we will see some general options here, selecting the day range, the default view, the hemisphere, what north or south has to do with using daylight savings time. Enable daylight savings time is right here. Now this is an area, the JS function field is an area where we have a lot of different options. So we define our settings in the calendar in this field right here. So for example, we have add task, this custom button. If we can change that to add schedule, maybe, if you're managing people's schedules. Now, when I close this, you'll see this says add schedule. So that's pretty cool. And what other options do we have to change? We can go through here and select what options are in the header and where we want the title and these other options. If I go ahead and let's go ahead and just open up the calendar over here so we can make changes and watch it happen. So for example, if I say I want to move, so we can see here we have the custom button, the FM new task that we saw here on the left. Maybe we want to move the title and put that over here on the left. And let's just commit the record, and you'll see it moved over here on the left. And I'm going to move that back. And there it went right back. Let me go ahead and remove this comma, okay, so it doesn't mess anything up. Now, the default view is we're using a substitute, and default date we're using a substitute. And calculation that inserts that data from the selections over here in the General tab. We have a slot duration. Now this shows us, if we go to let's go ahead and look at this in a week view. And we're going to scroll down and we'll see that right now the slot duration, each of these slots in the calendar is 30 minutes, but we could change that to maybe 60 minutes. Maybe we've got a lot of events on there and we want to see them in less space. So now you see that shortened the entire day. We can see everything without scrolling so much. We could also change the slot duration to 15 minutes. Give us and spread everything out more. Let's go ahead and select over here. Now you see that if we had more events closer together, shorter events, this might be the way to do it. And you can go through here and just see all the different settings that there are for the calendar. You can also look into, and we don't actually implement or have them all specified in here. Sometimes we're just using the defaults. And calendar, the full calendar.io has additional settings that you can add in there to customize your calendar further. Now, the next tab that we have is the events. Now, these are the events that the app found and is in FileMaker and is feeding back to the calendar. So this is a global field. Different people are going to see different data in there depending on what their filter categories are. But if I go over here and say I just want to see John Smith, you'll notice that it filtered it down to John Smith. John Smith's one record in here. You'll see John Smith isn't actually in this piece of JSON, this JSON object, and that's because the search was done on the FileMaker record, and we just passed in the JSON object with the data that was necessary for this specific event. So pretty cool. Now here is some callback data. We're using the FileMaker.perform script function. That means that you have to be on FileMaker 19 for this to work. But it works much better than using the FMURL protocol, which was previously used for implementing this calendar. But this is much faster and better and doesn't run into different versions of FileMaker. If you have multiple versions of FileMaker installed on your computer, often developers do. I have way too many versions probably. Now here is an HTML field we're using a substitute to compile our HTML, but this field is part of what's used to feed into the calendar. If we look and go into layout mode, we'll see that the field we're referencing is HTML_calc. And this field is just HTML. The HTML calc field takes all the HTML that we have here and inserts, using a substitute, all of the full calendar code that's in here. You don't really have to look through this. It is interesting to see it sometimes, but that is how we're doing that. Let's go ahead and look at the managed database and we'll see exactly how this is happening. So we have these different CSS fields, we have the HTML field, some additional settings fields like this calc field, and this HTML calc, which we saw in the web viewer, is what's bringing everything together. So if I go over here and look at this calculation, we are taking the HTML field and then we're using a substitute to insert all the data into this field. So this is what kind of brings it all together, feeds it into the web viewer, and that's where everything comes together to see it in the view that we want. So I'm going to maybe cancel out of here because I don't want to change anything. Do we have any questions up to this point, how this is all coming together?
Yes. What's the advantage of this method over the FM Calendar add-on? Question mark.
Good question. So the FM Calendar add-on I don't think it has quite as many features in it, though we can take a look at it. Let's when we're done here. This actually predates the add-on, and this full calendar.io is actually the basis of that add-on. So it's using a lot of the same techniques, but it's not exactly the same. I think this one has a few more features out of the box, but definitely the other one works as well. And we can take a look at that when we're done looking at this one. So one thing I wanted to look at here, if we go to our settings and go down here, we have a locale version or locale option, which we can change to different, which is where we change the different languages, which is a request that we get pretty often. And we used to not have it built in, but now we have the locale built in, and you can enter whatever option you want in there. So I just changed it to FR, which would be French. And you'll see now we have, it didn't change walk the dog, but everything else was changed to French. I don't speak French, but, and if you go to this locale option here, you'll see all of the different options we have. So for example, this one, this looks like Arabic or something. Go to settings and switch this one out. Where was our locale? Right here. Put that one in. Then we get these. But there's, I think, about 80 different options here that you can change the language. And some of these are, like, there's multiple English options. So like English GB would be English for Great Britain. We go back over here and say this one. Save. And how is that different? You'll notice that we're saying day, month, year instead of in the US, we usually do month, day, year. And I think that's the biggest difference there. But a lot of different locale options, which is really handy for those people who are not speaking English or in a different part of the world. Okay. So we just covered how the calendar works in FM Starting Point, how the fields are set up in the background, and now we're going to take a look at the scripts. Before we do that, do we have any other questions?
Yes. In the calendar, can you receive an external notification for each scheduled event, like an SMS, WhatsApp, etc.?
Yeah, good question. So this calendar doesn't support something like that. That said, you can set up something else. So I have set up notification options in FM Starting Point with using Twilio. So I have one client where they are scheduling meetings on site with clients, and a text message will go out to the client 24 hours before the appointment and just remind them, hey, we're going to be there tomorrow at this time. If you need to cancel, please call this number. And then I also have ones that schedule as employees, and they get a text message just a couple minutes before reminding them that they need to check in or reminding them where they need to be. So you can set up other notifications, but it's not part of the calendar library per se. You'd have to use some other kind of implementation, whether that's Twilio or WhatsApp or another API. Good question.
There are no other questions currently, so we can keep going.
Okay. So how are we kind of getting this data from FileMaker to this calendar? And the answer, let's go ahead and take a look at the tasks table. So the tasks table is where the events live. And this is where all of the data lives that we are feeding into the calendar. You could have multiple tables represented in the calendar. It doesn't have to be one table. In FM Starting Point, it's set up as one, but you can add additional tables. Sometimes I add projects in there, and they give people an option to show where they want the data to display from, whether it's projects or tasks or something else. So this field, calendar underscore JSON, is the field that formats the data into JSON so that the calendar can read it. We have to get the data into a format that the calendar can understand, and that is JSON. So JSON stands for, it's an acronym, stands for JavaScript Object Notation. And let's go ahead and look at this calculation. And you'll see here that we are taking the data, the field data from the record, and we are just setting the JSON elements. So we have the ID, title, whether it's all day or not. And then we've got a calculation here to define whether it's the time, if it's all day or not, and then the end. And then we have a color. So pretty simple calculation here. We don't have to have the format JSON elements, but we have that in there just so we can see what it looks like. It makes it more legible. So once we have it in this format, and then it's ready for the calendar to read. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to remove this filter. And when I remove the filter, what we'll do here is we'll go walk through the script to see how FileMaker is running a script to grab data from FileMaker and then passing it through to the JavaScript library to display in the calendar. Let's step through this. So it selects first the calendar window, and if it's not there, it opens a new one. And then it refreshes the calendar, which is this script collect tasks for display. And as we jump through here, you'll see we have notated what we want the object data to look like. And the step that is most important for this is this set variable where we grab the calendar events. Now let's go ahead and look at the script and see what it's doing. Because what it's doing is, I think this might be the only instance of using this calculation in FM starting point. So what we are doing here is we are running this execute. Let's go ahead and specify here. So here, and here it is. We're running this execute SQL query. And so what this does, this calculation here, compiles a query, SQL query, that it then tells FileMaker what to query and gives us a result. So I'm going to cancel out of there so we can look at what this query looks like. And you'll notice that in that calculation, it saved it as a global variable. So here's the query. It's a pretty simple one because we don't have any filters on it. So it's saying select all execute SQL in the calculation engine have to be a select. Every execute SQL query command is a select. So we're saying from select calendar JSON, that's the field, from, and then our table tasks where flag show on calendar is greater than 0. So if it says don't show on calendar, we don't want to see it. But everything else, we're not limiting it by anything here. We're just saying show us everything. And after that's run, we get this calendar variable, which we can look in here. And we'll see that we have this nice list of JSON objects that define those calendar events. I say go ahead, okay. It saves the record and then closes it. And you'll notice that this field over here with our events updated, and that triggered the layout, the window over here to update and show us all of this data here. So that one thing that's handy about the way we have it set up is that this query is saved in a global variable, so you can always refer to it even when the script's not running. So let's go ahead and add a filter on there. I'm going to say the Colorado room. Now I added a filter there, and now it's saying where we have an additional criteria here. Flag show on calendar has to be greater than 0, and category has to be Colorado room. Let's do another one. Let's say it's John Smith. So now we're going to see calendar JSON. We have the category has to be Colorado Room and staff name has to be John Smith. So you can have additional options in there and filters. The more filters you have and the bigger your data set is that you're searching, the slower it's going to work. So it's not always the best way to collect that data, but it is the fastest implementation for this and for the calendar kit. Okay, so we covered there how it works for a user experience, how the fields are set up in the background, how the scripts work in the calendar. And so the next thing I was going to take a look at, because the question came up earlier, was comparing this to the calendar add-on that comes with FileMaker.
Can you explain really fast what an add-on is, Calvin?
Yeah. So in FileMaker 19, there's this new feature added that I'm still really excited about. It's been there for a few years now, but I still think it's really awesome. And I don't think it's reached its potential quite yet. I've seen people do stuff with it, but it's not, I still think we're going to see some cool things happen. So I'm just going to create a new layout. And I don't think I'll base it on the same calendar layout. I'll say computer and foreign, finish. So here is our new layout. And we have this on the left pane, we have three options. Fields, so we can grab fields and pull them onto our layout. We have objects, which there's no objects, so we don't see anything here. And then add-ons. And the add-on is this piece of code that is saved on the computer or in an add-on library. And when we say add it, it takes the code and just adds it on to your app. So let's go ahead and see how this works. If I say select the plus button here, it installs a new add-on. You'll see I've got a bunch of different ones. Let's go ahead and type in calendar. And I think this calendar, this is the one that so this one's created by Claris. This is the calendar that comes with FileMaker. You'll notice I have a lot of more add-ons in here as well. So choose this one. So it says the add-on cannot be installed or uninstalled because other users are editing affected parts of the file. I have never run into that error before.
Hold on.
That's interesting.
I'm going to test that real fast, maybe, on mine.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and open up a different version of FileMaker.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this is a FileMaker version issue.
And now I'm going to say open with, and let's just try FileMaker 19. See what happens. Let's just pick up where we left off. So I'm now in FileMaker 19. We'll see if I get the same error. I'm going to type in calendar. Go down to, here's the FileMaker calendar. I'll say choose. And it added it. So that seems like a FileMaker bug to me. Interesting. Well, there we go. So I added this this add-on from FileMaker. What you'll notice here, now let's see if it added, I don't know that it adds any tables in here. So yeah, actually creation order. Okay, so here we go. If you look here, it added two new tables, FC Calendar add-on and FC Calendar sample events. So if we go into layout mode, now going through that add-on, it just took this code from a library on my computer in the FileMaker setup and just stuck it right on the app. So here we have an event table. We have the event table view or just the regular data. And then here's a card window. All of this was added without me having to, all I did was say add. So it's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and go to here. And if I select this settings, I will be able to update the settings that are here. So let's go ahead and change this. So you'll notice here, everything's already set to reference the FC calendar sample events data. So I'm going to close this and say new record and say this is a test, start date. Let's do today, and style. There's a similar thing that's doing here. It's calling it style instead of category. So there is our view, and now we can go to week and see, here it is. We can drag it to make it, we can move it around or drag it to make it wider, which the other calendar supports as well. Now, this is great, but what if I want it to reference something else? If we go into the manage here and look at our required fields, instead we can select event detail layout. So if I want to go ahead and select, now I don't know offhand which layout I want to select. Let's try a tasks list view. And there's, it looks like it's not showing me what fields I want. So let's go ahead and let's create a new layout. So I'm going to create a new layout, and I'm just going to say T17, T19, tasks. I'll just call this T19 tasks, so it's easy to find. Let's just finish. So it's looking at this layout to find all of the fields that we want. I'm just going to select everything and pull it over. There'll be a lot, but it'll give me everything we need. So go to browse mode. I'll go back over to, let's go to manage layouts and open up the calendar layout. Or I guess we added this to our own layout, didn't we? Add. There we go. So let's go ahead and select settings again. We're going to select our new T19 layout. Now, okay, so here's all of the records that we wanted to see. So I'm going to say ID task. The title field is called, I think it's called title. And the date field is date due. The time field is time due. The date end field is date end. The time end is time end. Okay, let's go ahead and save. Now, if we remember, back in April, we had records. So do we have any records on there? E19. So we see we have 6 records, and they should be showing up. Let's look at the dates on there. The date is 4/19. And it looks like so what it did was that it's using that table for a new, that layout that I gave it. It's using that as our card window, which wouldn't be what we want. Let me add a new script here, and I'm just going to say close window, close window, save, close window. Okay, so let's go ahead and point this instead of T19, we're going to go to that, whatever our task pop-up is called, which is 1400. So layout 1400. There we go. So this is the primary key. So so the primary key isn't on the layout. That's a problem. Let's go ahead and select item. So we'll have to update our layout to have the primary key on it. Let's go ahead and say ID task. So now the ID task is on there. I think we have to close this and open it back up. So here, let's go ahead and select layout 1400. And we'll go to the item. Everything else is there. Let's go ahead and look at this again. It's just called item. and it's not showing up for us. Oh, we're not in April. So let's go back to April, see if that fixes it. There we go. So now we have we're seeing the data from another table in here, which is really pretty cool that we could set that up like that. So that's just kind of a basic overview of the add-on version of the calendar and how that kind of works. It's using the same library, but has different CSS to make it look a little different. And it has a different kind of setup there. You couldn't do, or it wouldn't be easy at least, to have multiple tables feed into this, while the FM starting point one, it's a little more, you can go through the scripting and add additional tables to there if you want. But it's a little, as far as the filtering goes, there's a little less there. And as far as adding additional tables, there's a little less going on. So I feel like the one in FM starting point, it's a little, you can mess around with the settings a little more, while this one's a little more static.
How would you take the calendar out of FM starting point and put it into another file? Question mark.
Yeah, good question. So I would start by importing, well, if you are a member of the FileMaker of the fmtraining.tv, then there is an add-on of the calendar from FM starting point. So you should have a download to that in your membership download links and such. And you can, if you open that up, there's a button that says install. So you would install the add-on on your computer. And then you can go through the same process I just went through here, but except instead of selecting the Claris's calendar, you would select the RCC calendar and it would install on your app. And then there are some instructions in that to finish it up. And it's going to save you a lot of time if you go through that route instead of just copying and pasting everything. If you were to just take it right out of FM starting point, the way you might do that is to import the calendar table and then create the calendar layouts and just have nothing on them. And then copy and paste in the scripts, and then copy and paste in the layout objects for those calendar layouts. And then you'll want to go through that one that finds the events and have it point to your event table and update those options there. But it can be a little tedious doing something like that. So I would recommend being a member and using the calendar add-on kit, which is available through the fmtraining.tv memberships.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that it was technically part of those. So, but I hope that answers that question. Do we have any other questions?
I did a lot of implementations of the calendar manually, and I think there's a video of me doing it, and I got it down to like 15 minutes, which is insanely fast.
Quick. Yeah.
15 or 20 minutes. There's probably a video on YouTube you can watch.
I feel like there probably is.
Me doing that, but you want to use the add-on. The only reason I was able to do it in 15 or 20 minutes was because I had done it for 2 days, time and time again, speeding it up. And so...
This isn't one of those things you want to build from scratch,
practicing.
then?
No, you probably don't want to build this one from scratch.
So,
all right. Any other questions?
I don't really see any other questions at the moment, actually. So I know it's kind of a more complicated topic because it tackles like JSON and WebViewers and all that jazz.
JavaScript, yeah.
Yeah. But I don't...
So
I don't think there's an easy, like, simple way to do this. There's not like a layout object that's just a calendar, other than the add-on itself, where you just dump it onto it.
And I think it's still in FM starting point. The way we used to do it back in the day
Oh,
Yeah, it's
I
still
haven't
in
seen
there.
this in forever.
So it's still in here. And this is repeating fields. And I have no idea how this works. But if you select it, now you'll see we've got walk the dog. It brings up a pop-up window. Yeah, so it's still baked in there. For people who are using FileMaker, an older version of FileMaker that doesn't support the JavaScript library. And so this is how it used to be. And if you go into layout mode, you'll see that these are repeating fields. So we've got two sets of repeating fields. We've got the days, and then we've got the activity. And actually, it's combining two different tables. So you can just type in here, and that's saved in one table. And, oh, maybe it's not working. So do you see how it went into two different ones?
Yeah, I was wondering what was up with that.
Yeah, test. So then we have, but it's displaying the same data. You can tell, and when we go from one month to the next, you can see the days change, but it's not half as flexible. It doesn't make it, you can't change the size of it. You'd have to go into layout mode to change any of the settings. We see the C_days would be a calc days, and that's defined in some calc based on you would want to adjust. But so you definitely don't want to go this route. I never reverse engineered this one, but that's how we did it back in the old days.
For a full calendar, do you need to be connected to the internet?
Yeah, good question. So it depends on how you have it implemented, but in FM Starting Point, the way that it is implemented is that all the full calendar data, all the code is saved in this record right here. So in all these fields, this is all the full calendar data. And if you pull that out, there's quite a bit there. So you don't have to be on the internet for this to work. I would show you it offline, except that then I would lose the live stream. But this app is local to my computer, and it's not referencing the web at all. So good question.
Is full calendar IO ever going to stop being free? ?
Yeah, so full calendar is kind of a freemium type thing. So if we go to pricing, you'll see that there's standard, which is what we're using here, is free. It's like a get started thing. And then there's premium. And what the premium comes with, you'll see that it has a timeline view, vertical resource view, printer-friendly rendering. Now, printer-friendly rendering doesn't really apply to FileMaker. FileMaker still has problems with printing on a WebViewer. So don't get excited too much about that. But the resources, I'm not sure if we go to demos and look at a resource timeline. Everything that I showed you up to this point was free for full calendar IO. And this one is one of their paid views. So you can do a grid like that or a grid like this. And I do have a few clients who have purchased the expanded features for full calendar, and they use it to manage their calendars. Here you can see we've got room A, room B, room C, room D, but this could just as well be different employees or different assets, different trucks, and different teams, and work for scheduling those. So the full calendar has additional features. The features that we're using have been free for quite some time, so I don't anticipate that will change. But there is a way that they're funding their work. That's about all I had prepared today. Thank you so much for watching the live stream and talking about calendars with me today.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Calvin. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I hope that you all have a lovely day and have a good one. So, goodbye.
Bye. report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir!